Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I feel very blessed and humbled to be speaking with you on this special day, and I wish to thank Kemi Oduwole, Dr. Adewale, Rowena Power, and the Women Focus Canada organization for the gracious opportunity to share some of my experiences with you. I must confess to feeling a touch of imposter syndrome in the company of so many incredible women. So I thank you so much for your generous attention. Growing up in rural Quebec, my mother would often say these simple words to my sister and I. Women are amazing. These words made perfect sense to me, but also confounded me at the same time. Being the youngest in my immediate family, and also the youngest member of my extended family, that included 17 first cousins, I was surrounded by nurturing and inspiring women, and I grew up with a very clear sense that women were without a doubt amazing. What confounded me was why my mother felt the need to make that assertion so often, and perhaps more importantly, when. She said it when we ran into our neighbor at the grocery store with her child with physical disabilities, and after a visit to her friend who was caring for her parents with dementia. She also said it about her own sister, who had 7 children in 10 years and later obtained her master's in education. Or during her teary admiration for Miss Seeley and Nettie as we watched The Color Purple as a family. I began to realize that my mother was in fact marveling at women's strength in the face of great adversity. Women are amazing was my mother's mantra, her way of showing her pride at being a woman, but also a cautionary counsel to her young daughters. Being a woman is truly a blessing, but one that comes with many crosses. I think I always wanted to be a teacher. As children, my sister, who was 1 year older than I, often played work or school at home, and she was always the boss or the teacher. And so I decided that one day it would be my turn and I would finally be in charge of all the stickers. I also dreamed of being a doctor, but the path of teaching allowed me to align my life with that of my young son, who I raised alone for the first 10 years of his life. Those exigent first years of motherhood coincided with my first years of teaching. My first offer for a permanent job came from the Toronto District School Board, and I was hugely reticent to leave the perceived safety of the suburbs to teach in the city. I was afraid that I would be ill-equipped to be an effective teacher in a context so different from where I grew up. In a sense, I was right to have been apprehensive. Teaching in an area of social, economic, and pedagogical challenges opened my naive suburban eyes to the fact that while all children are uniquely gifted, not all children are gifted with the same opportunities or resources or even institutional norms that can allow them to really thrive. I also discovered that as a teacher, listening can be far more powerful than speaking. I have certainly learned more from my students than they could possibly have learned from me. While I would not want to characterize my years of teaching in the city as one-dimensional, I did experience the loss of students to gun violence and also prostitution, returning to the classroom after traumatic events, and helping the students to deal with tragedy stands out as among the most difficult moments of my career, both personally and professionally. From the time that I became a mother, I am at all times keenly aware that every student I encounter is their parent's precious treasure. This is certainly not to suggest that those who are not parents are not excellent educators. That's simply not the case. But for myself, my motherhood shapes my interactions with my students. And I've always been more interested in the affective aspect of teaching over the effective. I never wanted to be an adult in their lives who they remembered as being harsh or impatient or unkind. My favorite quote on the subject of affect from the transcendent Maya Angelou is a daily reminder of priority. At the end of the day, people won't remember what you said or did. They will remember how you made them feel. Being a positive, supportive, and trusted ally in the lives of young people is our solemn duty to our students as teachers, but it's not one that's always easy. When my second and third children were born, my eldest son was a teenager, and I decided to move to the York Catholic Board to be closer to home. My 13 years plus with the York Catholic Board have been very blessed. I have been privileged to open a brand new high school and pilot a French immersion program with an incredible group of colleagues. But these years have come with personal and professional challenges. Professionally, our school community had to endure the changing of our school's namesake due to his abuse of women. The crash of Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752 that claimed the life of a dear student and her brother and mother. And the extraordinary challenges of hybrid learning during a global pandemic impacting 3 academic years to date. Like many frontline workers in healthcare, food services, and many others, our jobs have become as much about managing mental wellness as managing our professional responsibilities and under grueling conditions. On a personal level, my mother, with whom I was very close, became critically ill. She spent 40 days in intensive care, and when we believed her to be palliative, we chose to bring her home to be with her family as she passed. Her strength was remarkable, and she lived for 2 more years, although in a painful and convalescent state. Like many women, I would wake at 6 a.m., ready my children for school, teach approximately 100 wonderful students with diverse needs and gifts, and then proceed to the hospital or to my mother's bedside while trying to meet the needs of a young family. I never questioned what was required of me. In fact, being there for my mother was the most definite moment of clarity of purpose that I've ever experienced. After my mother's passing, my father lived with our family and sadly was diagnosed with lymphoma. At the time and in the years since his death in 2019, I have become aware of the fact that in my role as a caregiver and in continuing to be a strong teacher, mother, and daughter, I didn't take the time to gauge my own mental wellness, nor did I take time to seek support for my own grief. I'm certainly not alone, and I know that there are countless people, many women, who can relate to the notion that some days after waking, the first thing that we do for ourselves that is not in service of others is to crawl back into bed at night. What is most inconceivable is that for caregivers who already give so much of themselves, being spread so thinly and pulled in so many directions, they are often left feeling that they are ineffective in any particular aspect of their lives. I have experienced this with many of my female teaching colleagues who give of themselves tirelessly at work and at home, striving to achieve that elusive and nebulous work-life balance, feeling conflicted about where their attentions are needed, and are left feeling with feelings of guilt and inadequacy rather than pride and personal satisfaction. I think of this as the proverbial hamster wheel of meal preparation, work, homework, laundry, meal preparation, soccer, piano, bill payments, dentist, dog walk, bed, wash, rinse, and repeat. And then we add to all of this the absence of time to engage in self-care, physical exercise, and also significant occasions to self-actualize, learn new skills, consider career advancement. This is certainly not a recipe towards closing the gender wage gap. The social dynamic of inequity of caregiving is of great importance and without a clear solution. I believe that as women, it is truly in our DNA to nurture and care for others, and for this reason, it is often difficult to establish boundaries for care without feeling that we are abandoning those who need us most. As a mother of a teenage daughter, I want to foster in her those instincts to nurture. However, I am mindful that I must also teach her to tend to herself and to avoid the perils of what I call pervasive, polite people-pleasing, and to set boundaries in her life that will allow her the time and space for personal growth. Perhaps I need to first teach myself. Thank you so much for your kind attention and for the efforts to all of those who organized this wonderful event. My mother was right about so many things, and today reminds me that women truly are amazing. Thank you.